Every day, something dramatic happens in the Caribbean that affects our lives. We'll give you the details. We'll give you the facts on Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. Here's Eddie Frederick.
So glad you can join us. A swift increase in income tax threshold demanded in Jamaica. This story takes the lead in today's edition of Caribbean Perspective for Thursday, 1st June 2023. Details when we return.
The hurricane season is now upon us, so we as Caribbean people need to remember to think safety and be prepared. Avoid venturing outside during a storm or hurricane, especially if there are strong winds. Rooftops and other debris are often blown about and can cause great damage.
Welcome back. Outgoing president of the Jamaica Civil Service Association, O'Neill Grant, is demanding a swift increase in the income tax threshold. Nika Lewis of CVM Live reports.
Compensation review for public sector workers saw some unions coming under fire from their members for allegedly not demanding more or being more robust in their requests of the government of Jamaica. Outgoing president of the Jamaica Civil Service Association, JCSA O'Neill Grant, says they fought for better, but admits that looked differently for many.
For the person who is earning $4 million a year, who is going to see over the 3-year period an $800,000 increase in their net pay cumulatively, versus the person who earns $500,000, who is going to see their salary increase to $1 million. It's a $500,000 difference. That person who is earning that $500,000 is going to feel a lot happier than the person who was earning $4 million and is now getting another $800,000.
He says, unfortunately, the compensation restructuring was not a percentage increase. Otherwise, they would have taken a different approach. He highlights concerns that members shared to include bemoaning the massive income tax deductions, adding to workers' dissonance.
You can't have a situation where when you increase the salary in any way that you have done it, and it means that the government is taking home more tax than the worker is taking home, it increases, it will have a debilitating psychological impact.
Addressing the association's 104th annual general meeting, he reiterates his hope for the government to swiftly increase the tax threshold. Meantime, Grant dismissed talks that he's not a member of the public sector.
I signaled 2 years ago that I will not be seeking re-election. It was time to move on and to resume my career as a civil servant. And let me just clarify for the record, there are some persons who are going around and telling people that I am not employed in the public sector, that I don't have a job at the Ministry of Agriculture for the past 2 years. I'm gainfully employed at the Ministry of Agriculture.
Nika Lewis, CVM Live.
Meanwhile, Nika Lewis again tells us that Jamaica has been bouncing back from the COVID-19 pandemic quicker than projected, with more growth predictions for the April to June quarter of 2023, while a study is being conducted to bridge the country's skilled labor deficit. The Planning Institute of Jamaica, PIOJ, indicates the pandemic forcing companies to pivot proved a saving grace in more ways than one.
Director General of the Planning Institute of Jamaica, Dr. Wayne Henry, says the first quarter of the year yielded a 2.7% increase in the Jamaican economy when compared to the corresponding period last year. He says the growth was spawned by increases in several critical sectors, to include tourism and mining, injecting a faster than expected economic recovery for the country.
This performance reflects in part the impact of the retooling and expansion, as well as pivoting undertaken by firms as they sought to manage the challenges brought about by the COVID-19 pandemic. The preliminary outturn for the quarter resulted in growth of 4.3% for the fiscal year 2022-23 and represents full recovery in overall output levels from the impact of COVID-19, 1 year before the projected recovery date of fiscal year 2023-24.
Noting that businesses being forced to pivot during the pandemic made the economy more resilient on the back of the crisis, Dr. Henry highlighted a few emerging labor concerns.
Whereas efforts are being made to attract significant investment to spur economic activities in areas such as BPOs, tourism, logistics, digital animation, and other IT-related services, a constraint currently facing Jamaica and its investors is that of an adequate supply of sufficiently skilled labor to capitalize on the opportunities which will arise.
However, he says research is being done to inform a future training strategy to remedy the shortage while offering short-term solutions in the quest for skilled workers. Meanwhile, growth for the 2023-2024 fiscal year is expected to fall within the range of 1 to 3%.
Efforts to ensure the attainment of this target, as well as to realize upside potential to growth, should include the continuation of efforts at building climate resilience, as climate hazards have traditionally detracted from the attainment of optimum performance within key industries, and also strengthening the efficiency in the rollout of capital projects, ranging from tackling procurement delay issues to improving project management capabilities, also building human resource capacity of the labor force to facilitate the seamless implementation of projects in new and emerging areas.
He was providing the findings of the PIOJ's quarterly review and economic outlook for January to March 2023. Nika Lewis, CBM Live.
In other news, the Office of the Governor General in Antigua and Barbuda says Sir Rodney Williams cannot call a commission of inquiry without the request of a cabinet or a duly authorized minister. Garfield Burford of ABS News reports.
The release from the Governor General's office says upon assuming the post, Sir Rodney Williams took an oath to, quote, preserve the Constitution of Antigua and Barbuda and the law, and conscientiously, impartially, and to the best of his ability, discharge his duties, and do right to all manner of people without fear or favour, affection, or ill will, end quote. The statement says that is what Sir Rodney is doing and why he cannot call a commission of inquiry without the request of Cabinet or a duly authorised minister. The statement says Sir Rodney instructed his office to secure independent, expert legal advice in light of the debate about whether he had the authority to call a commission of inquiry on his own into the West African migrant saga. The statement says, as a result, quote, the Office of the Governor General engaged legal firm BDB Pittmans LLP, a reputable chamber with vast constitutional law experience at the level of the Privy Council, to instruct London-based Senior Counsel Gregory Jones, KC, to provide a written legal opinion, end quote. The Governor General also instructed Senior Counsel Alan S. Wood, KC, based in the Caribbean, to provide an opinion on the same question. According to the statement, both acted independently of each other, but arrived at the same conclusion. They both agreed, quote, it would not be lawful under the Constitution of Antigua and Barbuda for the Governor General to call a commission of inquiry otherwise than upon the advice of the Cabinet or a duly authorized minister, end quote. As ABS News has reported, King's Counsel Alan S. Wood has made it clear in paragraph 18 of his opinion that the Governor General's power to appoint a commission of inquiry under the Act must be read in accordance with Section 80, subsection 1 of Antigua and Barbuda's 1981 Constitution. That section states, in the exercise of his functions, the Governor General shall act in accordance with the advice of Cabinet, end quote. King's Counsel Gregory Jones also references Section 80, subsection 1 of the Constitution. King's Counsel Jones also quotes Sir Frederick Albert Phillips, who says the term deem it advisable in legislation means the Governor General should act on the advice of Cabinet. In addition, the Governor General's office says the same view was expressed in a legal opinion, quote, dated 18th September 2002, held by the Governor General's office and obtained by the previous Governor General from a specialist independent counsel in London, end quote. In the end, the statement says, quote, the Governor General is bound by his oath of office to act in accordance with the established law, end quote.
You're listening to Caribbean Perspective with Eddie Frederick. In this HGP News report, Renata Burnett informs us that the Director of Public Prosecutions, the DPP, has advised for 19 murder charges to be filed against the student accused of setting the fire at the Mahdia dormitory, resulting in the tragic deaths of 19 children. However, a clinical psychotherapist believes the teenager is also a victim of this horrifying incident.
1 week after the deadly Mahdia dormitory fire, which claimed the lives of 19 children and threw the nation into mourning, the Director of Public Prosecutions, Shalimar Alihak, Senior Counsel, has recommended 19 murder charges for the teen who allegedly started the blaze. But U.S.-based Guyanese clinical psychotherapist Shane Tull is of the belief that the alleged arsonist is also a victim of this tragedy.
She's also a victim of this tragedy. Think about it. Think about what caused this to happen. So think of someone that feel that's the appropriate way to resolve a conflict. Because I'm sure that if we know who she is and we go back into her history, we're going to find that this person has some traumatic experiences.
According to Tull, in most hinterland communities, there's a high incidence of violence, alcoholism, and rape. He said it is possible that the teen who started the blaze may have been a survivor of a traumatic event, and as such, the confiscation of her cell phone might have been a trigger.
What's her lived experience to this age that she believed that this was her best response? So, and it's clear that we don't want to absolve her of this behavior, but we want to understand what's the genesis of this.
As it relates to the survivors reintegrating into the school system, Tull stressed the importance of teachers receiving crisis intervention and informed trauma care training.
Recognize the symptoms of someone that may be at risk, because I'm sure that this young lady, she had other encounters in the school that was probably troubling, that no one probably addressed. So if they have those skill sets and they have to train them, they will be able to identify someone at risk at an earlier stage.
Around 23 hours on Sunday, May 21, 2023, a fire erupted at the Mahdia Secondary School dormitory. 18 girls and a 5-year-old boy perished in the blaze. Upon further investigation, the Ghana Police Force alleged that the fire was maliciously set by a female student who was aggrieved over her phone being confiscated by the dorm mother and the teacher. Renata Burnett, reporting for the HGP Nightly News.
Over now to Jamaica, where Jean-Ann Panton claims she was coerced to make a confession in the Stocks and Security Limited fraud matter. TVJ's Kalisha Williams has the details.
Miss Panton, a former client relationship manager, made the claim in her defense in a lawsuit brought against her and 9 others by an investor, Gene Ford. Mr. Hugh Croskery is listed as the 3rd defendant in the suit. In her defense, Miss Panton said the background of the alleged confession was premised on an offer made by Mr. Croskery on behalf of the first defendant, SSL. In the document filed in the Supreme Court on May 25, Ms. Panton said the offer was an inducement and the statement would not have been made otherwise. She is challenging the claimant to strictly prove the validity of the alleged confession statement and allegations according to law. According to the signed confession statement dated January 7, 2023, which was made to SSL as part of an internal investigation, Ms. Panton named 39 clients whose accounts had a total value of almost $3 billion. She said she took approximately 20% from the amount stated for each account, in addition to a further $109 million. An account in the name of Wellgen Limited, a holding company owned by sports great Usain Bolt, was not mentioned on the list, and SSL in a subsequent statement said it was unaware that the portfolio was affected. Bolt's account value plummeted from US $12.7 million in October 2022 to $12,000 US in January. Wellgen has also sued SSL. In her suit, Ms. Ford, who is 80 years old, is alleging she was defrauded $830,000. Both matters, which are being heard together, are scheduled to be mentioned in the Supreme Court on Wednesday. Kelisha Williams, TVJ News.
Hubbard's is once again innovating the way you shop with its new online store, providing 24-hour shopping convenience. You can shop now for appliances, hardware, houseware, building material, and more. Free delivery island-wide. Start shopping now at hubbardshardware.gd. Safe, convenient, reliable.
I am Eddie Frederick. This has been Caribbean Perspective, a whole new approach to highlighting developments in the Caribbean. In the meantime, please continue to log on to CaribbeanPerspective.com for more daily news and more.